Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Cryptid Cocktail Party, a show where we have a few drinks, share a few laughs, take a dive into the unknown. I'm your host, Dave, joined as always by my good friend, Sarge the Destroyer. How you doing, handsome?
I feel aroused.
God, I should have known that was going to be the first thing.
I just needed to, so for those of you who don't know why I did that, I just got a soundboard. A mixing board or whatever, because my microphone wasn't great. And I wanted to up my game a little bit. And then I discovered that I could change my voice. And now I'm going to abuse the shit out of that ability.
It's going to be such a pain in the dick for me.
I already said, I'll always warn you when I'm going to do it.
Oh, well, I appreciate that, bud. But how you doing, bud? How's life? How are things?
I'm phenomenal. I just had a birthday. I turned 43 on Friday.
You old fuck, dude.
Yeah, I'm old as shit. So old. Too old.
I mean, some might say.
Yeah.
I don't know who.
I say it.
Okay.
I'm going to say it. I'm too old.
I say that now, and I'm almost 38, so it's not like I can't really complain.
It just feels like too much. It's too much.
I feel like once you get past the age of 33, is just like when everything just kind of starts like steady decline.
Yeah, you really just like once you hit like 33, you just start buying more and more ibuprofen and ice packs.
Oh yeah, dude, I go through ibuprofen like they're Skittles, dude.
Yeah,
like,
I live on ice packs. I'm constantly one joint in my body always has an ice pack on it.
Yeah, it's not ideal. Word of advice for the kids out there: don't grow up.
Yeah.
Simple as that. I think it's, emotionally and physically. Just don't do either of them. Just be.
I mean, the cool thing is I now own all the toys my parents wouldn't buy me when I was younger.
That is the upside of being an adult with a full-time job.
It's kind of worth the effort that goes into it.
I agree. Sarge, it's our first episode of 2025, I think.
Hot damn.
I know, right? Wild to think that what a roller coaster of a year 2024 was.
Roller coaster. Absolute roller coaster.
So good. We got sponsored. We got an award.
We got an award, which is insane to me.
That banana. I still don't believe it. I feel like all of this is just a prank. That's like an elaborate prank. Someone's
it's a
like
really
pulling
elaborate prank. It's like that episode of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia where they make Dee a famous stand-up comedian.
Yes, it is 100% how I feel that this is going. So thanks everyone for an awesome 2024. It's been wild. It's great. And it's only just been getting better. We had awesome guests. We had fucking Jordan. We had fucking Jonathan from Latinos Against Spooky shit. Like it's just been great. And hopefully 2025 just fucking.
We're just going to keep going. We're going to keep. If anybody can get in touch with Aaron from Ghost Adventures, tell him I need him on an episode. I have so many questions.
It's funny you say, because I actually emailed Steve from Ghost Hunters to see if he would be on the
Even
show.
better. Yeah. So I did reach out to Aaron just recently. Actually, I found him on Instagram, but I don't know if he's gonna respond.
Dude, you don't want fucking Nick, dude? Nick, what's his? I forget his
Nick
last
Roth?
name.
He's not on there anymore. He was off there in like 2014. They had a falling out.
Yeah, but now he's a rapper, and it's fucking great. Yeah, dude.
God. Is it raps about ghosts?
Yeah.
I just want to hear him rhyme about ectoplasm.
It's gnarly. My buddy's podcast, Cool Parents Podcast, they cover a lot of Ghost Adventures stuff. Not because they're a paranormal podcast, but just because it's fucking ridiculous. And
it's so funny.
And Nick's raps come up quite often.
I'm gonna look this up. I'm gonna send it to everyone I know.
It's so good. But yeah, so I today's episode, or first episode 2025, I think just laid back, cool, fun, nothing crazy. Let's ease into the new year. I feel like is a good idea, right?
It's a palate cleanser.
Yeah, pretty much. So today, Sarge, we're going to be heading to the great state of Maine, the way life should be. To the Allagash Wilderness region of the state.
More trees, less assholes.
So, are you familiar with the Allagash Wilderness, that region up in Maine?
Yeah.
So, for those of you who don't know or unfamiliar with the Allagash Wilderness, it's one of those places where you're either going to have like one of the most peaceful, beautiful camping trips of your life, or you're going to end up as a protagonist in a very specific genre of horror movie. It's like, it's one of those like beautiful but terrifying places.
Yeah. Like Deliverance is an accurate representation of all of the rural east parts of the country.
Exactly. So it's essentially 92 miles of just like dense forests, glassy lakes, and pristine rivers, and it's literally in the middle of nowhere. I think I read, I don't know how true this is, but within the Allagash Wilderness area, I think it's less than 200 people live there. Like it's remote.
Yeah,
It's
that makes sense.
yeah,
That makes sense.
Now, unfortunately for today's subjects, their trip up to the Allagash played out more like the second scenario more than the first as far as their camping trip went. This week, we're going to be covering the Allagash Abductions. Is this something you're familiar with?
No, not at all. I'm very excited.
Are you? I can hear it in your voice.
I'm turned on.
And just so we're clear, this is like an alien abduction story. We didn't switch.
Naturally.
We didn't switch genres to true crime.
Yeah.
Not yet, anyways.
Not yet. Once we run out of orange multi-armed cryptids.
So, all right, let's dive into this bitch. Are you ready?
Yeah, let's fucking do it. I'm so excited. I love alien abductions up here because there's nothing better than somebody with like a thick New England accent trying to describe constellations. Dude, they fucking had me right near Alpha Centauri. I swear to God.
Oh yeah, don't you know? You don't go up there. That's where you get abducted.
I can't get there from here.
No, back in the day, this was all orange groves. I don't know. Fucking all right. That's one of my favorite things to say in a Maine accent. Oh yeah, back then it was all orange groves, as far as the eye could see. In a Maine accent, that's a funny thing to say, and I don't know why.
No, I agree.
All right, so in August of 1976, four buddies decided to go on a 2-week camping trip up in the Allagash Wilderness. Like a nice little retreat filled with hiking, canoeing, fishing, maybe some smooching. I don't know.
Oh.
Just four dudes enjoying the great outdoors and being one with nature and possibly with each other. No, I'm just kidding.
It's not gay if you're in the woods. It's not gay if you're in the woods. That's the rules.
Yeah. The group consisted of, well, maybe now I regret saying what I said, consisted of brothers Jim and Jack Wiener. And their
it is rural Maine. So...
And their two friends, Charlie Fultz and contender for best name that we've covered on the show so far in 2025, Chuck Rack.
Yes. Chuck Rack has a take no bullshit attitude.
Chuck is wild. Now, all four of them were art students from Massachusetts who decided to take this trip to just, get away from it all, dude. The hustle and bustle of fucking getting high and discussing the difference between Monet and Manet. But I get it, like I have a ton of friends that went to art school in Boston. Art school can be stressful. And if anyone can survive 2 weeks in the most remote parts of Maine, it's definitely four dudes from like Mass Art or Mocha. It's
going to be trouble. It's going to be a little bit of trouble.
Yeah. So the first few days out in the wilderness, business as usual, just your run of the mill, boilerplate camping trip with your boys.
Right.
Drinking beers, fishing, all that stuff. That is until the second night. Now, Jim noticed a strange bright object in the sky. He said it appeared for about 30 seconds or so and then vanished. The group didn't really think too much of it and chalked it up to like a plane or a satellite, which it makes me think that it didn't say, but this means that the ball of light was probably moving across the sky and not just stationary. Because I feel like if it was just a stationary ball of light and then it just went away, you wouldn't assume it was a plane or a satellite.
Right. Unless you were like maybe behind the plane, like watching it fly off into the distance, but then the light would change. So
I don't know. Either
forget
way,
everything I just said.
Yeah. They weren't like in a panic over it or anything. And they just went about their night. So it wasn't like something wild. Nothing crazy happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is until 2 nights later on August 20th, 1976. This is when shit got really real quick. The four dudes paddled their canoes out onto Eagle Lake to do some night fishing, but not before making their campfire. Like as big, like it basically made a bonfire just so that the way they could see.
Yeah, so they could see. Right.
Yeah, so
that's a smart play, actually.
Yeah, they stoked it up real big. Now the sky's clear, stars are out, everything is calm. That is until it wasn't. Suddenly, Chuck, soon followed by the rest of the men, sees this massive light in the sky, and it's not just like hovering above the tree line. Like this thing is moving towards them and at a speed that is not comfortable.
Uh-oh.
No, you think their first instinct after, they all finally noticed this thing would be like, get the fuck out of there. Right.
Yeah.
Nah, they just,
that would be my response.
They just kept fishing. And then Charlie, arguably the dumbest of the group, decides he's going to take his flashlight and like shine like SOS at it.
Oh God. Yeah, that's really a great idea. Flash SOS at any aircraft while you're on a remote lake. That's always going to end well.
Yeah. Now, I'm sure he realizes now in hindsight that this was a bad move because whatever the object was, it decided it was going to shoot its own beam of light down at them. And that's when Chuck was like, guys, we got to start moving like now.
Time to go.
The beam of light followed the men along the water as they hurriedly paddled their way back to shore. But the beam of light only got closer and closer until the beam finally caught up with them. And then, bam, the men were back on shore at their campsite, watching the light vanish into the sky. The fact that the men don't really actually remember reaching shore, but were now back at camp, didn't really seem to faze them. Each one individually probably assumed that the fear and adrenaline of being chased by a rogue light made them temporarily black out or something, or because it was so hectic in the moment that they simply just didn't realize they had hit shore because they stood up out of the canoes and then watched the light vanish. They must not have really been focused on that part because, not gonna lie, that sounds fucking terrifying. The weirdest part to them was that the well-stoked fire that they had lit only minutes ago was now completely burnt out, suggesting that they had been gone for several hours. But dudes being dudes, they were like, that's weird. Then they just went to bed and then proceeded to spend another 10 days in the woods.
Wow.
Now,
no fear whatsoever.
Yeah. No fucks given. Pretty good for some art students, I feel like. Because if that was me,
I agree.
who grew up in that area, I'd still be like, yeah, we're going to go. Just done. Now, they didn't experience anything else in the woods those last 10 days. And when they returned home, they told their family and friends about their weird encounter with the lights, but nobody believed them and they were just went about their lives.
Yeah, no one ever believes you until.
Yeah. Now, that is until 1988. Jack started having strange nightmares about the four men sitting on a bench naked and being just absolutely terrified, and these creepy humanoid beings with giant black eyes. It was around this time that Jim, Jack's brother, suffered a fall that triggered seizures, which caused him to start having visions of alien visitors levitating in his bedroom, as well as the same strange nightmares as his brother. Now, at some point, I believe it was around the same time, the four men are hanging out at a party, just shooting the shit, and they started discussing the incident on Eagle Lake. It's then that they realize that all four of them, not just Jack and Jim, are having basically the same nightmares. So they all decided it was time for some answers to what's going on. So Jim reaches out to UFO researcher Raymond Fowler to try this hip new thing, regressive hypnosis.
Oh, good.
Now, I just want to pause for a second and talk about Raymond Fowler. He's the guy who pretty much he literally wrote the book on this story. He was a well-known UFO researcher back in the day, authoring books on some of the most famous UFO and alien abduction cases like the Betty and Barney Hill abduction. So he wasn't just some UFO enthusiast. He was a meticulous, dedicated guy, and he really threw himself at these cases to try and get to the bottom of these stories. He was already well established at the time, super credible. So when these guys came to him, they knew he was their guy. But I don't know what his credentials were for fucking around in people's brains. You know what I mean?
I don't recommend it if you don't have any credentials.
Yeah, well, whatever. But anyway, so under the guidance of Fowler, all four of the men agreed to go under separate regressive hypnosis. I can't say this without stumbling. To go under separate regressive hypnosis sessions to try and uncover what had happened during those missing hours. And boy, did they uncover some fucking stuff. Are you ready for this shit?
No, I'm so ready. I'm very excited. This is actually hypnotic regression is actually something that I know a little bit about, not only for researching the episode, but also just in my ancillary research into the satanic panic.
Yeah.
So I'm a bit of a fan of pseudosciences that don't actually work and actually cause bigger problems.
Don't get your skeptic hat on just yet. There's a time and place for this. All right.
Sorry. I'm just throbbing right now. I'm ready.
So each of the men described being taken aboard a craft where they were separated immediately upon entry. Classic alien move. They were led into different rooms that they described as being cold, metallic, and eerily sterile. There, the aliens began their experiments. Now, what kind of experiments, you may be asking?
Butt stuff, always.
Yeah, it's always butt stuff. It's super awesome, highly invasive experiments you'd expect from aliens. Needles were inserted into their heads, their arms, spines, dick and balls.
Yep, sounds about right.
The beings seemed particularly interested in collecting reproductive material. They collected semen, blood. They even scraped off skin samples with what looked like a metallic curved planer that they like put on their chest. You know, like a planer, like a wood.
Yeah. No, I know what you're talking about.
At least that's like how I interpreted what was being
like
described. Yeah. No matter what you're picturing, it's probably just as
It's
bad.
worse.
Yeah,
It's worse. Yeah.
No. They described the creatures performing these tasks as having large, black, almond-shaped eyes, spindly limbs, and grayish skin. The beings never spoke to the men directly. Instead, they quote-unquote talked directly into their minds, so telepathy.
Okay.
They were saying stuff like, you will not be harmed, and this is necessary. Necessary for what, you may be asking? They did not clarify. No.
They never do. They're like, this is necessary. Now, bend over and spread them cheeks, boy.
No, I think one of the creepiest parts, and so did the men who experienced it, was just like how like detached the beings seem. Like there's no emotion, but there's also no malice and also no empathy. Like they just purely clinical detachment from their subjects.
Which makes sense when you think about it, because like when human beings are testing on animals, like we're like, oh, don't worry about this, but we have no idea. You know, when they shoot an animal with a tranquilizer dart, like I'm sure it hurts them. I'm sure they don't enjoy it.
Oh, no. But also, like, if you're just seeing something as a scientific subject, you're not thinking about.
Yeah.
No.
You don't care.
Yeah. But anyway, so that's what they remember. That's what they got from this whole regressive therapy thing. Super fucked up. I would want to forget it too. And I honestly think that if I came out of the hypnosis, like I would just be like, fuck you, Fowler. Like maybe forget again. Like now they just have to live with that now.
Yeah, thanks for the help, you dick.
Right? Like what do you do? Like now you have to go to like actual real therapy to like get over it.
Right?
Like, no, dude, I don't need this shit in my life.
I was better off not remembering. I could deal with 1 or 2 nightmares every couple of months.
Yeah. So basically, so that was their story. But I mean, that is if we believe their story. You know, and why should we? Well, for starters, they all describe the same exact events during their hypnosis sessions, down to like the smallest details. And they were conducted separately, so it's not like they could just bounce ideas off of one another. Second, they all also underwent polygraph tests. Now, I know polygraph tests aren't like super fucking foolproof, but it's worth noting that not one of them showed any signs of deception when they were recounting their experiences. And then another reason why it's kind of believable is their artwork, especially Jim's. Remember, these are fucking art kids, by the way.
Right. Art students.
It is hauntingly vivid. And if you get a chance to look it up, definitely do. But his sketches are detailed. Like the beings.
He got every vein on his testicles correct.
the beings, the craft, and even like the instruments they used on them. It gives the story some kind of like a really unsettling like tangibility to it. Like it's not just some like abstract idea. Like the incident clearly left a mark on him, but not everyone believes this story, and there are always going to be skeptics. Some argue that what the 4 men experience could have been natural phenomena. For instance, the lights in the sky may have been ball lightning. Yeah. Some also suggest that it could also have been experimental aircraft. Now, I personally don't buy either of those. Ball lightning is crazy rare, especially in Maine.
It was obviously swamp gas.
And the Allagash, like, it's so fucking remote that there's no way there's an experimental Air Force base out there.
Yeah. I mean, why? Why would they do it there? Why wouldn't they do it over the desert where it's flat? So if the plane goes down, it's easy to find.
Yeah. It also doesn't explain like the missing time or the vivid memories uncovered during their hypnosis, which brings us to our next skeptic viewpoint. Regressive hypnosis. Sarge, you're kind of like a mini expert on this.
Man.
You want to cover this one?
I am.
What it is and why it's kind of bullshit.
Okay. So hypnotic regression is a practice of hypnotizing patients to access repressed memories. So practitioners believe that by putting patients into a state of hypnosis, the typical inhibitions of our mind are weakened enough to access the more remote areas of memory.
Okay.
So to understand this type of therapy, it's also important to first understand why someone would want to access these memories. Like you actually touched on a little bit, like I would rather just not remember this.
Yeah, just let me forget.
Yeah, but not to Sarge explain here, but humans use memory to inform future decision making. Obviously, we all know that.
Yeah.
And this is an easy way for our minds to help navigate, for instance, the best routes to get to a place that we've already been to. Like, don't go this way. You know, there's a swamp in the way. You're going to get wet. Go this way instead, for instance.
You don't want to go down there.
Can't get there from here.
Can't get that from here.
So, but this also helps us to survive. So, for instance, if we touch a stove when it's on, the unpleasant memory of the pain that we receive, the burn, will remind us not to touch the oven in the future.
Yeah.
The Natural Institute of Health reports that negative memories are often more vivid than positive or neutral ones. And this is why most people can remember even mild insults with a lot of clarity, but can't remember what they had for breakfast yesterday.
Yeah, explains a lot of my shower thoughts.
Yeah, mine too. I mean, I'm really trying not to think of you in the shower, but it still comes up. While it is established that negative memories can reinforce positive behaviors, some negative memories are also so traumatic that our brains are believed to retain them, but unconsciously lock them away in an effort to protect us from vividly reliving the trauma, repressed memories.
Now, you said believe, because I probably should have done some research on this too, but I heard a thing that like repressed memories aren't even really a thing.
So I'll get there.
Okay,
I'll get there.
right.
You're not far off. So some examples of what could be a repressed memory would be experiences like childhood abuse, violent crime, natural disasters, things like that.
Yeah.
The problem with so-called repressed memories is that while victims did not clearly remember the memory itself, our bodies would still have the physiological response to some of the circumstances that existed during the event in which the memory was created, which could trigger stress, anxiety, and panic.
Yeah.
These circumstances could be different smells, different sounds, or even something as simple as a strong breeze. In my case, as a veteran with PTSD, I'm triggered by the smell of metal shipping containers, large crowds in the area around the finish line of the Boston Marathon. But because I do not suffer from repressed memories, I can take steps to mitigate that. However, with people who have repressed memories, they won't know what's going to trigger them until it's too late. It's believed that accessing these repressed memories will give therapists the opportunity to treat the symptoms and potentially desensitize the patient to more common triggers. While there are many practitioners of this form of therapy, there are just as many, if not more, detractors. The argument against repressed memory itself is pretty complex. There's a whole rabbit hole you can fall down if you're so inclined. I'm just going to try to simplify it with three main points. First one, memories are copies of copies of copies. Science now believes that when we are remembering something, we're actually just making a new memory based on the details we retained from the old memories. In that practice, some of the clarity is lost. So the emotion remains strong associated with the memory itself, but the memory becomes more an amalgamation than a verbal retelling.
Gotcha.
So this is why an eyewitness testimony alone can be a hindrance to a case. Think of like the cross-examination scenes from My Cousin Vinny.
Yeah.
The research into repressed memory found that people are more likely just forgetting things than actually repressing them. And evolutionarily, this kind of makes a lot of sense because while there's if there was a super traumatic event, why would your mind hide them from you?
Yeah.
It would only protect you to remember it. So you would have a much better chance of surviving. So if you remember why there's a strong breeze, then you know why it's making you panic and why you should avoid it. And then finally, the instance of repressed memory are purely anecdotal. There's no way to measure a repressed memory with any sort of reliability.
Gotcha.
Now, the arguments against hypnotic regression are also kind of complex, so I'll simplify with really just this one kind of big bullet point I put together. So hypnosis is an effective treatment for behaviors because under hypnosis, the subject of the hypnotism is highly open to suggestion. It can help people overcome undesirable habits or encourage people to engage in desirable habits. However, even skilled, well-meaning hypnotists are incapable of telling real memories from false ones. So when they use hypnosis to bring up these repressed memories, they don't know what they're bringing up. They don't know if it's real or not. And the reason for that is that repressed memories you're almost in like a dreamlike state when you're under hypnosis.
Yeah.
It's not the same as a dream, but it's very similar. Your mind kind of
sounds kind of like a sleep paralysis kind of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. For instance, what was experienced during the hypnotic regression sessions during the satanic panic of the late 70s and mid 90s through the mid 90s is that many of these repressed memories were actually just false memories inadvertently created by the hypnosis practitioner because hypnosis is so closely linked to dreaming.
I was going to say, like, isn't one of the big things is that when they're when they're in this state, they can, like, the person doing the hypnosis can kind of ask like leading questions and kind of like give you leading.
Exactly.
And then you just kind of form that shit in your own brain. And then they're like, oh shit, see, I was right.
Which is why I'm not really super swayed by the fact that all of their stories matched up, because of course their stories matched up.
Yeah. It's
the
same
guiding principle. Exactly.
Yeah. The one common denominator between all of them is like, he could be like, if Jack was under, and he's like, now
Exactly.
Jim saw this. Did you see this as well? He's like, oh shit, yeah,
Right.
I definitely saw the dude getting planed alive. Like,
Yeah, and it becomes a sort of yes and situation. So the therapist may not always be trying to implant memories. They may just be trying to get to the bottom of the truth. When you've got a true believer like this guy who's a UFO researcher.
Well, I don't think he did the actual thing, but he was present in the room, so he might have been. So
he's probably yes-anding his whole way through it. And back in the 70s and 80s, they really didn't fully understand how suggestible people were in hypnotic regressions.
Yeah.
A good example of the satanic panic style hypnotic regression is a book called Michelle Remembers.
Oh, fuck,
This book was written by a highly unethical therapist who, with the help of his patient, uncovered alleged satanic ritual abuse, only for the accused of the abuse to refute these claims with undeniable proof, such as locations that supposedly these crimes were committed in never existing ever.
Wait, there's the Martin preschool case?
No,
like
you're thinking of the McMartin trial, which happened in California. But Michelle Remembers was a Canadian story.
Okay, but there was also kind of the same thing where they were saying that underneath the school there was like a bunch of like tunnels and stuff like that,
and shit,
and they dug up the school and didn't find nothing.
It wasn't there. But also, in Michelle Remembers, another highlight, Satan actually makes a physical appearance, apparently, which is just batshit insane.
No, it's
and
awesome.
As for the unethical behavior, just so you don't think I'm trying to ad hom this guy, I want you to fully understand, aside from exploiting his highly suggestible patient, the therapist, Dr. Lawrence Pazder, later married this same patient, the subject of the book, while continuing to treat her and promote himself as an expert in satanic ritual abuse, a thing which never actually existed. So that is why I am not a huge believer in satanic regression. Hypnotic regression. It's just insane.
But that makes you think that maybe he implanted in her mind that she loved him.
Yes. Yes, that is what
wild.
I believe. Yes. Because she was basically 18 or 20, I think, at the time he started this, and he was in his like 40s. He was married with kids.
And maybe he was just hot doc, dude. He was just he's a hot doc.
He's Dr. Zaddy.
Yeah. So basically, the skeptic's saying that regression therapy is bullshit, and I agree 100%. I think that the whole repressed memory thing is very false memory adjacent to the whole thing. Like, so I agree with that.
And they actually say that people are really bad at determining whether they have a false memory or a repressed memory.
Oh, I'm sure that half my memories aren't real. I think I made up most of my backstory is probably all fake. I have no idea.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times I remembered something and then only to talk to somebody who was there and they were like, "No, it didn't happen that way."
Yeah.
It's how our brains work.
Yeah. But the thing is, I believe to remember the things that I want to remember.
Yes. I try to remember the more positive version of the story, regardless of who remembered it.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that I'm skeptical of this abduction, honestly. I actually kind of like the idea of it. I want to hear more about it, but in terms of the hypnosis aspect of it, pure bullshit, full on.
Yeah. So the other things that the skeptics are saying, besides, natural phenomenon, fucking military air bases in the northern Maine and the regression therapy, is that some are saying that this case just may be all made up. Like, I mean, but that's always
also a good possibility.
But that's also like what every fucking skeptic says. But I mean, like, if that was the case, like, why stick to the story for decades? Why go through all the troubles of like the hypnosis, the polygraph tests, and endure like the scrutiny of public opinion, which basically what we're kind of doing now? Doesn't seem really worth it. But also, this theory it doesn't help that the fact that Chuck, decades later, would claim that parts of his story were exaggerated and then recanted much of his experience. He also said that the men were high as fuck before going on.
I was really hoping it would eventually get to that point, because I was pretty confident that somebody was high.
But they said that they smoked a bunch of hash, which I don't think makes you hallucinate. I'm pretty sure it's basically just like weed resin. It's like it's weed. It's cannabis.
I'm not super familiar with hash. The one time I smoked it, I didn't hallucinate.
Yeah, that's what I'm
But
saying.
I'm not really familiar with what it is. Somebody just handed it to me and I smoked it.
It's nothing. It's not like, so they weren't like fucking like tripping on acid, which is kind of weird because it was the 70s. You think that would be the case, but no, they did. They smoked a bunch of hash like before they went out on the lake that night. And then he claimed that this is also part of like a get rich quick scheme. And the four of them thought that they could make a pretty penny by telling their story.
Okay.
But he also still claims that he did see a craft, and he said that he did feel like they were being watched while out there. I don't know what his deal is, but the other three men still defend their stories and they no longer speak to Chuck. So
okay. Yeah. So maybe, I mean, I don't know. I think there's a really good possibility that the hypnotic regression therapy probably implanted a little bit of this story. So for somebody like Chuck, you know, they'd lost some time. They were smoking hash. So if it's anything like weed, it's going to kill a good portion of time.
Yeah.
I've certainly smoked enough where I've brain dumped an entire evening.
Yeah. And then you're like, why? How the fuck did I end up on my couch eating ice cream?
Exactly. Have you ever like gone out with friends and smoked, and then your memory turns back on and you're in your house and you're like, I hope to God I didn't drive. Right.
Yeah. But it's also like, it seems like, or maybe Chuck's brain is just more like, he's not as susceptible to hypnosis as the others. And then he realized like, wait, like this didn't fucking happen. Like,
it's actually interesting that you say that.
Maybe he was yes-anding the yes-ander. Like, right. He's just like, yeah, sure, fuck it, man. Like, yeah, there was. He's
like, I was so high, I don't remember that night. Maybe that is what happened. Or maybe I just made out with those two brothers.
Yeah, maybe I don't know. A needle in my dick and balls. And
maybe they were just sounding me.
Exactly. That could be the case. So maybe Chuck is the one who's like, no, you guys, listen, this is not a thing. And they're like, no, fuck you, Chuck. We remember now. And he's like, all right, fine, whatever.
Like a lot of people experiment in college, Chuck. You were at art school in Boston in the 70s. I mean, come on.
That's what I'm saying.
There's nothing wrong with it. You drive a truck once. It doesn't make you a truck driver. And no one's judging you. You know, I don't care if you guys got it on. Like, yeah, you're trying stuff out.
But whether you believe it or not, the Allagash abductions, like, they remain one of the most iconic cases in UFO lore. Like, while it may not be like as well known as some of the others, it is often cited alongside like the Travis Walton fire in the sky.
Yeah,
case.
I was thinking a lot of the correlations with Travis Walton's story.
Kind of like here, that. You know? And then also like the Betty and Barney Hill abduction, as like this is one of the most credible and chilling encounters, I guess you could say.
I love that story too. I mean, we've talked about this before, but I love going up to that gas station.
Yeah, the one, the mural.
Across from where they were abducted.
Yeah.
And going to the mural. I friggin' love it. It's like a religious experience for me.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, and this case also helped popularize the idea of an alien abduction as not just like a solitary event, but something that could happen to like a group of people, which added like a new layer of complexity to the whole like UFO abduction phenomenon. So whether it happened or not, it definitely it shed some light on some stuff in the community that people were starting to take notice of. So that's kind of cool.
I think it kind of makes this story more accessible to people too. And just in terms of them being like, oh my God, like I go camping with my buddies sometimes, you know?
Yeah. I give them smooches.
I would actually love to see, I would love to see a UFO when I'm out camping. That'd be so friggin' cool. I mean, I've been out camping. I've seen satellites go by.
I mean, I wouldn't want to
stars.
Put a needle in my dick and balls, but
I don't want to be sounded by aliens for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it depends how drunk I am, how I'm feeling, how hot are the aliens.
Yeah.
They didn't sound hot.
They didn't. No, they didn't.
Nightmare. But yeah, I want to believe this story is true. Like
I do too, especially because it happened in our own backyard. I mean, we can drive up to Allagash, you know.
Yeah, I'm realizing now that like I just kind of ended the story and went straight into the theory. So that's because like I couldn't find like any back. Like they didn't like go home and then talk to the media. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't like one of those deals where like you hear about it and they're in the newspapers for like a bunch of, and then everyone in town is shitting on them and like fucking calling them frauds and shit like that. Like, so it kind of just is that. It's like their story. Yeah. They found the dude, they did the hypnosis, and then, you know, the guy wrote a book about it later. And then like, it wasn't until like, I think the 90s or whatever that Unsolved Mysteries, the original one, did a story on
Okay.
them. But even then, like, I don't remember hearing it. I had never heard of this case until now. So it's not like,
I mean, I'm never convinced by the get rich quick scheme angle when people talk about that for these stories, because no one has ever in the history of alien abductions gotten rich because they got abducted by aliens.
true. I mean, Travis Walton got a movie made about him. I don't know if he made money.
I don't
off
think
of
he's
it.
rich though.
Oh God, no, not by any means.
Yeah.
But I mean, he's probably better off than fucking Chuck.
Yeah, that's true.
Just
I mean,
saying.
all he did was surprise me with the fact that there's a town called Snowflake in fucking New Mexico.
That's fair.
How did that happen?
Wishful thinking.
I guess.
Or maybe global warming. Maybe there was at one point. We don't know.
But I met somebody from Snowflake, and I was like, oh my God, fire in the sky. And she was considerably younger than I was. She's a college student. She's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, forget it.
Yeah, don't worry about it. You wouldn't get it. No. But yeah, so there you have it. Kind of a more relaxed episode. We didn't really go too hard on anything. Nothing too crazy, except for the sounding thing. I want to believe the story is true. Like something.
I do too.
Something definitely happened to the men out there. Whether they're just high, saw a fucking weird light in the sky, and then forgot, or maybe they did get full on sounded by grays. Who knows?
Or maybe it was a little bit of both. Maybe they just had a passionate night of wonderful carnal experiences in the deep, dark, remote recesses of the Maine forest.
Well, I mean, they didn't not leave for another 10 days, so.
Exactly. Maybe they were like, hey, we need to explain all these weird scars in our body.
Exactly. All right. So what do you think about this story?
I like it. I want to go camping there. I want to go right now.
It sounds like a nightmare. Well, not right now.
Not right now because it's cold and shitty, but we should go there and record a podcast from these woods.
All right. See what happens.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll get
just see what happens.
Just
get up there.
Just the male urge to get abducted with your boys.
Yeah, exactly. I've got FOMO.
The masculine urge to get sounded by aliens next to your boys.
Sometimes I wonder if some of these alien abduction stories are just a way for like some really repressed dudes to just get some of their fantasies out.
All right, Sarge. That's the end of the episode. I think we did okay for our first episode back in 2025. Maybe
I think we nailed it.
I have no idea. Fucking who knows? All right, is there anything you want to plug before we?
Yes, the coloring book is still live. SargesSupernormal.com. Get a coloring book and color your pain away. Also on Friday, I'm going on Scotchfully Yours with some buddies of mine.
Is it going to air Friday or is it going to?
I don't know. I'll put out some stuff on the interwebs. I'll post something on the socials so that people can tune in appropriately. I'll support it. Doug, who is one of the co-hosts that I know, he's a great guy. I'm sure we're gonna have a good time.
Hell yeah. If you want to keep up with what's going on with Sarge, you can follow him on all of his socials at Sarge the Destroyer on most platforms.
Yeah, just Google Sarge the Destroyer. You'll find it.
Or you can find all of his socials at the link in our Instagram, which you can follow at Cryptid Cocktail. You can follow us on TikTok, Cryptid Cocktail Party. Please leave us a rating and review. It super helps. Tell your friends to listen to the show, even if you don't, even if they don't like it, just get them to listen to one episode.
That's their problem, not yours. You led them to water. Make them drink it.
Steal their phone, download every episode, and then leave a rating and review as them.
Yes, that's encouraged.
I think that works for me.
Smoke some hash first so they don't remember.
Yeah, it might be fraud, but I don't give a fuck.
It's not really like it's only fraud if you get caught.
I mean, it's not like a criminal fraud. It's
like a little rapscallion fraud is what that is.
Yeah, it's very
you incorrigible scallywag.
It's a very Tiny Tim crime.
Yeah, great.
Yeah. All right. So thanks so much, everyone. 2025 is going to be our year. I can feel it.
I can feel it too.
I think with that out of the way, Sarge, do you want to say goodbye and I love you to the audience?
Goodbye and I love you guys.